Scrum is fun, and it's so much fun I've decided to make a story about Scrum so you can learn more about it. There's a 3-5-3 configuration in Scrum. 3 roles, 5 events, and 3 artifacts. The 3 roles are the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers. The product owner is responsible for the product backlogs sorting, prioritization, and the overall accountability of ensuring there is value in all that's being done. The job of the Scrum Master is to serve as a coach, and the job of the developers is to build what needs to be built using the right practices and frameworks. There are 5 events: the sprint, sprint planning, daily scrum, sprint review, and the sprint retrospective. There are 3 artifacts: the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the increment. Throughout these stories, I'll be narrating to you the Scrum Chronicles. We'll take a look at the twists and turns that teams typically face, and we'll talk about some of the events and other drama that happens in the world of Scrum. So let's jump in to the Scrum Chronicles and learn about Scrum while we enjoy the story.
The Scrum Chronicles Part 1. A Journey into Scrum. Fran and Mary had a problem on their hands. They had just taken over a team that had been struggling with ineffectiveness and suspicion. There was a lack of transparency, communication, and trust within the team, and it was affecting their ability to deliver value. Luckily, Fran and Mary were well versed in the Scrum framework and its 3 pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. They knew that to overcome the team's challenges, they needed to foster an environment that embraced these pillars and the Scrum values of commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. Fran and Mary first focused on transparency. They encouraged the team to openly share their work and progress with each other and with stakeholders. They emphasized the importance of inspecting the results of their work and adapting as necessary. Through this transparency, the team began to build trust and collaboration, and they became more effective in their work. Next, Fran and Mary worked on promoting inspection. They encouraged the team to frequently inspect their work and their progress toward their goals. By doing this, the team could detect potentially undesirable variances or problems and adjust their process as needed. Through this inspection, the team was able to catch mistakes early and make adjustments before they became bigger problems. Finally, Fran and Mary focused on adaptation. They empowered the team to adjust their process and materials as soon as possible to minimize further deviation from their goals. The team became more self-managing and more willing to take risks and try new things. They were able to adapt quickly to changing requirements and deliver value to their stakeholders. Through the Scrum framework and its pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation, Fran and Mary were able to transform the team from one of suspicion and ineffectiveness to one of collaboration, trust, and high performance. The Scrum values of commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect were the foundation for this transformation, and the team embraced them fully. Fran and Mary were proud of the team's accomplishments and excited to see what they could achieve next.
One of the main lessons we can learn from this chapter is no framework or method is bulletproof. In other words, it boils down to human interaction. The success of Scrum, Kanban, or any other framework or method rests heavily on the individuals and their interaction. We can also learn from this first chapter that on your exam, whatever exam you are taking in the world of Scrum, Agile, you can expect questions to pose human interaction issues, interpersonal skills issues, communications, leadership, and the soft stuff. I often say the soft stuff is the tough stuff. Let's move into chapter 2 and see what happens next.
The Scrum Chronicles Part 2. A New Mindset. As Fran and Mary started to adopt the Scrum framework, they found that their approach as project managers was not aligned with the values of Scrum. They realized that they were being centralized leaders, and that their team members were not empowered or self-managing. They had to let go of their old habits and embrace the Scrum values. Jen, Carolyn, Michelle, and the rest of the team were initially skeptical of the Scrum framework. They were used to being told what to do and how to do it, and the idea of self-management was new to them. However, as they started working with Scrum, they began to see the benefits of the framework. The Scrum values of commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage helped the team to work better together. They were committed to achieving their goals and supporting each other, and they focused on the work of the sprint to make the best possible progress toward their goals. They were open about the work and the challenges they faced, which helped them to identify and solve problems quickly. They respected each other's abilities and were not afraid to have difficult conversations when needed. They had the courage to do the right thing, even when it was hard. Fran became more of a customer advocate and chief value officer, understanding what value needed to come first in the backlog. Mary became more of a coach and roadblock remover, helping the team to overcome obstacles and work more effectively. As a result, the team was more self-managing, and everyone was empowered to contribute their skills and expertise to the work. The team worked in sprints at a sustainable pace, which improved their focus and consistency. They became more productive and communicated better as a smaller, cross-functional team. They created a plan for each sprint, adhered to a definition of done, and adapted their plan each day toward the sprint goal. They held each other accountable as professionals. Jen, Carolyn, Michelle, and the rest of the team were now enthusiastic about Scrum. They had learned and explored the Scrum values as they worked with the Scrum events and artifacts. They saw the benefits of the Scrum framework in building trust and producing valuable, useful increments every sprint. As a cohesive unit of professionals focused on one objective at a time, the product goal, the Scrum team was able to achieve their goals and create value through adaptive solutions for complex problems.
It is important to realize that for Scrum to be effective, for it to work, there must first of all be an understanding of what exactly Agile is. Agile is a state of mind that is ever evolving and fluid and dynamic. It's a set of philosophies embodied very nicely in the Agile Manifesto values and principles. So when you think about Agile, think about the principles, the mindset. When you think about Scrum, think about a firm layer, a firm foundation, first of all established by solid, agile understanding. A conviction of individuals and interactions over processes and tools, work in product over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. Truly believe in cutting out the maximum fat, simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. In other words, maximizing the amount of fat cut out of the process is essential. And that's why certain so-called scaling frameworks that bring an unreasonable amount of overhead and burden are not agile. SAFe being the case in point. For more about this, go to safedelusion.com and read up a little bit more so you will be educated and aware of what Agile truly is, because there's some things that may sound agile and look agile, but when you look under the hood, you realize they are not agile. Let's move on to the next part of our adventure in the Scrum Chronicles.
The Scrum Chronicles Part 3. Events. Fran and Mary knew that the sprint was the heartbeat of Scrum. They understood that sprints were fixed-length events of 1 month or less, where ideas were turned into value. The team worked tirelessly within the sprint to achieve the product goal, which included sprint planning, daily scrums, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. During the sprint, the team worked together to ensure that quality did not decrease, and the product backlog was refined as needed. They clarified and renegotiated the scope with the product owner as they learned more. Sprints were essential for predictability, allowing the team to inspect and adapt their progress toward the product goal at least every calendar month. Fran and Mary understood that shorter sprints could be employed to generate more learning cycles and limit the risk of cost and effort to a smaller time frame. Each sprint could be considered a short project. The team used various practices to forecast progress, like burn-downs, burn-ups, or cumulative flows. However, they knew that these did not replace the importance of empiricism. In complex environments, what will happen is unknown, so only what has already happened could be used for forward-looking decision-making. Fran and Mary were aware that a sprint could be cancelled if the sprint goal became obsolete. However, only the product owner had the authority to cancel the sprint. During sprint planning, the team came together to lay out the work to be performed for the sprint. Fran ensured that attendees were prepared to discuss the most important product backlog items and how they map to the product goal. The team worked collaboratively to define a sprint goal that communicated why the sprint was valuable to stakeholders. The developers selected items from the product backlog to include in the current sprint. They refined these items during this process, which increased their understanding and confidence. They planned the work necessary to create an increment that met the definition of done. This created a sprint backlog that included the sprint goal, the product backlog items selected for the sprint, and the plan for delivering them. The daily scrum was a 15-minute event held at the same time and place every working day of the sprint. It allowed the developers to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary, adjusting the upcoming planned work. The developers could select whatever structure and techniques they wanted, as long as their daily scrum focused on progress toward the sprint goal and produced an actionable plan for the next day of work. The sprint review allowed the team to inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. The team presented the results of their work to key stakeholders, and progress toward the product goal was discussed. Based on this information, attendees collaborated on what to do next. The sprint review was a working session, and the team should avoid limiting it to a presentation. The sprint retrospective was an opportunity for the team to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. They inspected how the last sprint went with regards to individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and their definition of done. They identified the most helpful changes to improve their effectiveness, which they addressed as soon as possible. The most impactful improvements were even added to the sprint backlog for the next sprint. Fran and Mary understood that Scrum's artifacts represented work or value and were designed to maximize transparency of key information. Each artifact contained a commitment to ensure it provided information that enhanced transparency and focus against which progress could be measured. The product backlog was an emergent, ordered list of what was needed to improve the product, and it was the single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team. The product goal described a future state of the product that could serve as a target for the Scrum team to plan against, and it was in the product backlog. The sprint backlog was composed of the sprint goal, the set of product backlog items selected for the sprint, and an actionable plan for delivering the increment. An increment was a concrete stepping stone toward the product goal, and each increment was additive to all prior increments and thoroughly verified to ensure that all increments work together. The definition of done was a formal description of the state of the increment when it met the quality measures required for the product. It created transparency by providing everyone a shared understanding of what work was completed as part of the increment.
And as the rest of the story goes, Fran and Mary were very proud of their team's accomplishments. What can you learn from this story so far? What you can learn is Scrum is a framework that can be scaled up. There are various aspects that we can include in Scrum, such as the Kanban board. Now let's talk a little bit about Kanban. Kanban can be seen in the world of Scrum as a strategy for optimizing the flow of value. Through the framework, we use a visual work-in-progress pull system to guide what we do in the world of Kanban. In the world of Scrum, though, we have a cadence that is more set. In the world of Kanban, the cadence is free-form and flexible depending on a number of factors. The concept of flow is central to Kanban, and by flow, we mean the movement of value throughout the product development system. When we talk about the Kanban board, in the world of Scrum, it might be called a storyboard, but be aware that in the world of Scrum, we could scale our practices up. The beauty of Kanban is a visualization of the workflow, limiting our work in progress, active management of work items in progress, and inspecting and adapting the team's definition of workflow. The summary of the ideas behind Kanban and why we limit our WIP can be seen in Little's Law. The average cycle time is equal to the average work in progress divided by the average throughput. In summary, if you want to increase your throughput, you need to limit your WIP. Next, we'll move into a dramatic point in our story. In the world of the Scrum Chronicles. Let's journey into our next chapter.
The Scrum Chronicles Part 4. The Scrum Master. Mary had always taken her role as Scrum Master very seriously. She was a true leader who served her team and the organization with dedication and passion. She was always looking for ways to improve their processes and help the team members work together more effectively. One day, the team was working on a project when they were attacked by a bully stakeholder who was unhappy with the progress of the project. The stakeholder was aggressive and intimidating, and the team members were shaken by the encounter. Mary immediately sprang into action, coaching the team members in self-management and cross-functionality, and helping them focus on creating high-value increments that met the definition of done. She also caused the removal of impediments to the team's progress, and ensured that all Scrum events took place and were positive, productive, and kept within the time box. Mary facilitated stakeholder collaboration as requested or needed, and helped the team understand the need for clear and concise product backlog items. Mary's role as Scrum Master was crucial in this situation, as she provided the team with the guidance and support they needed to deal with the bully stakeholder. She worked closely with the product owner, Fran, to help her find techniques for effective product goal definition and product backlog management. Mary also helped the organization as a whole by leading, training, and coaching the organization in its Scrum adoption. She planned and advised Scrum implementations within the organization, and helped employees and stakeholders understand and enact an empirical approach for complex work. Thanks to Mary's leadership and expertise, the team was able to overcome the challenges they faced and continue to make progress on the project. Mary's role as Scrum Master was critical to their success, and she remained a valued member of the team and the organization as a whole.
A Scrum Master is not a mere facilitator or just a dog's body. A Scrum Master is indeed a leader at all levels, a servant leader, one who inspires, motivates, encourages, and protects, and understands the importance of being a diversion shield. And that is what we were able to glean from the last chapter. Let's move on to our next chapter, having in mind that in the world of Scrum, we scale up. I do not begrudge companies that add on to Scrum in good taste, but it's important to understand that it's not about the tools. It's about the individuals, the interactions, their synergies, their ability to retrospect and move forward. Let's move on to the next chapter.
The Scrum Chronicles Part 5. The Product Owner. As the product owner for the Healthcare Management System project, Fran had a challenging task ahead of her. She needed to determine what features would provide the most value for the business, while still meeting the needs of the stakeholders and users. With her deep understanding of the healthcare industry and her ability to work closely with business stakeholders, Fran was able to add value to the project right from the start. She began by working with the SMEs to identify the most critical features for the system, and then she carefully prioritized these features to ensure that the team worked on the most important items first. Fran's role as product owner required her to have a clear vision of the product goal, and she worked closely with the team to ensure that everyone understood what that goal was. She created a detailed product backlog that communicated the key features of the system and their priority, ensuring that the team had a clear roadmap for development. One of Fran's most significant contributions to the project was her ability to channel innovation and decisiveness from the business stakeholders. She worked with them to narrow down what they wanted in the system and then helped them communicate their vision to the team. Her leadership and collaboration were critical to the success of the project. Fran worked with the team to ensure that the product backlog was always transparent, visible, and well understood, and that any changes to it were communicated effectively to everyone involved. Throughout the project, Fran remained focused on maximizing the value of the system. She made sure that the features being developed aligned with the business goals and needs of the users, and that the team was always working on the most valuable items in the backlog. As a result of Fran's leadership and guidance, the Healthcare Management System project was a resounding success. The system delivered the functionality that the business stakeholders needed, while also providing a seamless experience for users. Fran's ability to work closely with the team and stakeholders was critical to the project's success, and her contributions added real value to the business.
And that's why we say the job of a product owner is extremely important. It's an extremely important position because if the product owner gets it wrong, then the team goes downhill. But if the product owner gets it right and understands the concept of value, complexity, urgency, risk, and other parameters, then it's a home run. If the product owner is able to relate to Little's Law and the concept around cost of delay, then the product owner has a much higher chance of success. And for this reason, we call the product owner the Chief Value Officer. Let's move into our final chapter of Season 1 and talk about the power of the team. The developers. Teamwork makes the dream work. The developers are an integral part of the Scrum team. They have their work cut out for them. Let's jump in as we round up Season 1.
The Scrum Chronicles Part 6. Developers Assemble. Fran, the product owner, and Mary, the Scrum Master, were leading a Scrum team consisting of Jans, Cindy, Michelle, Chandra, Ed, Laura, Viru, and Caroline. The team was working on a healthcare management system project, and the developers were responsible for creating a usable increment each sprint. One sprint, the team got into a conflict about the definition of done and definition of ready. Some team members felt that the standards were not high enough, while others felt that they were too strict. Fran and Mary immediately called for a team meeting to address the issue. During the meeting, the team members shared their opinions and concerns. Some felt that they were being held to unrealistic standards, while others felt that they were not being held accountable enough. Fran and Mary listened attentively and encouraged the team members to find a middle ground. After a long discussion, the team members agreed to revise the definition of done and definition of ready. They created a new set of standards that were realistic, but still challenging. They also agreed to hold each other accountable and to communicate any concerns as they arose. Despite their agreement, a team member tried to add more work in the middle of the sprint, causing tension among the team. Mary stepped in and reminded the team member of the definition of ready, which clearly stated that all work must be agreed upon before the sprint started. The team member apologized and agreed to follow the agreed upon standards going forward. Thanks to Fran and Mary's leadership, the team was able to work together and find a solution that worked for everyone. They learned to communicate effectively and to hold each other accountable, which helped them create a high-quality product each sprint. The project was a success, and the team members felt proud of the work they had accomplished together.
And that concludes the final chapter in Season 1 of the Scrum Chronicles. In our last episode, we listened to how the team overcame divergence. Divergence isn't a problem. Constructive conflict is also not a problem. Where it becomes a problem is destructive conflict. But with a team that is maturing, there is not a problem in conflict or divergence if it is well managed. And it is well managed by one, giving the team autonomy to grow and build and get to a point where they can make their own decisions. In the very beginning, a Scrum Master and a product owner may find themselves being a bit more on the directing axis than when a team is mature. A mature team needs less intervention and less direction. A young team, a new team, and I mean young in terms of how long they've been together, not in terms of age, a young team needs more guidance and hand-holding. But over time, the Scrum Master and product owner need to allow the team to grow, especially if they are the more mature individuals in terms of agile thinking, agile practices, and frameworks such as Scrum. Over time, the team will overcome its difficulty if we give them the right environment and support they need, and if we trust them to get the job done. The team should be exposed to vehicles for decision making such as Fist of Five, dot voting, the Highsmith decision spectrum, and others. This concludes Season 1. In Season 2, the journey will continue. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for coming on the journey with us. See you soon.